Welcome back, grade 5-6. So we're continuing on with We All Fall Down by Eric Walters. Phenomenal book. We are now on to chapter 13. So here we go. I'm not quite keeping the same pace as you, my father said. Not quite, but not bad for an old man. He chuckled. I guess I'm old compared to you. How's Ting doing, he asked. She hasn't said a word for a really long time. I looked up. Her eyes were closed. Was she sleeping? Was she unconscious? I reached up and gently shook her shoulder. Ting, I asked. Her eyes slowly opened. She smiled. Are you okay? I remembered that was one of the words that she actually knew. Okay. Tired. Tired? She was the one being carried, not the one doing the carrying. That's a symptom of a concussion, my dad explained. We have to keep her awake. It's not good for a concussion victim to go to sleep. Ting, Ting. My father's voice was loud, and she jumped a little in response. You have to stay awake. She looked more awake, but more confused than anything else. We better hurry, I said, and we started down the stairs. I have to tell you, in a funny way, I'm kind of grateful you're here, my dad said. You are? I questioned. I thought you wanted me to be somewhere else except here. I did? I do, but I don't know what would have happened if you wouldn't have been with me. That seemed to be a weird thing to say, all things considered, but there was one obvious reason why he was glad. It sure would have been hard to carry Ting all that way by yourself, I agreed. I may not have even found her here without you. But you heard her calling too, I said. I only heard her because we went down the stairs. If you hadn't have been with me, I might have gone back up instead. But I was the one who wanted to go up. It was your idea. It was your decision to head down. It didn't add up that I thought it was a bad idea at the time. It was my idea, but the only reason that I made that decision was because of you. If it had been just me, I might have gone with everybody else up to the roof and waited it out, my dad said. But because I had you with me, I just couldn't risk that. I had to take the chance to try to get down. I don't get it. And you probably won't until you have kids of your own, he said. What does that mean? You'd risk your life for your kids. You'd give up your life for your kids without even having to think about it. I had to take the risk in going down. Do you understand now? I guess. But you had to go with me. Wasn't that putting my life at risk? A calculated risk, but that's why I went down first. If something happened to me, I hoped you'd still be able to go back up the stairs. Nothing in this entire world, nothing is more important than you. I felt embarrassed hearing him say that. Would I be willing to give up my life for him? I thought I might, but I definitely have to think about it more before I made that decision. I was uncomfortable, and I wanted to change the subject. Who do you think did it? I asked. What? My dad asked, sounding confused. Who do you think it was that did this, that crashed the planes? My guess would be some extremists. At least those were the people responsible for the World Trade Center bombing in 1993. That's right, I sort of forgot about that. You were pretty young at the time, but believe me, I'll never forget it. Were you in here when it happened, I asked? It was in the underground parking garage, closer to the North Tower, but I was here, in this building, just heading out for lunch. It was about 20 minutes after 12. It was Friday, February 26th. You remember the date? I told you, I'll never forget. What happened exactly, I asked. A truck was parked in the underground garage. It contained 1,500 pounds of explosive. The explosion created a crater 5 stories deep and 22 feet wide. Wow, that's unbelievable. How many people were hurt? Well, there were 6 deaths and over 1,000 people injured. I'm afraid that's going to pale in comparison today. I don't even want to think about how many people have died or are going to die. It's awful, even more awful than it had to happen here twice. It just doesn't seem fair. Not fair, it's deliberate. This is an attack on one of the most important, most visible symbols of the United States. This isn't just a building. The World Trade Center represents the United States of America. But why would anybody want to do this to us? What did we do that could cause somebody to hate our country that much, I asked. Different people have different theories. Some people, simple people, say things like, those people hate freedom, or they're jealous because we have so much. But you don't agree. I agree we have a lot more than almost everybody in the whole world, but that isn't it. There are other countries that have the same standard of living as us, like Sweden, Switzerland, Germany, or Canada. But nobody hates Canada. And it certainly isn't just about freedom, because all of those countries are as free and as democratic as us. Then what is it? I think it isn't what we are, but what we represent. We're the only one true world power left. The United States is the dominant economic, cultural, and military power on the planet. So every time something goes wrong or doesn't go the way that it's supposed to go, then we're the ones that take the blame. What do you mean? Like, if two countries in Africa were at war, then half the world is angry because we haven't sent troops in to police patrol and settle the dispute. Do people really expect us to do that? A whole lot of countries. Unfortunately, if we do send in our soldiers, then the other half of the world is mad at us for interfering. So you think no matter what we're doing, we're going to be blamed, and it isn't really our fault. I'm not saying that, but I'm also saying that, but not. I didn't understand. Sometimes we aren't as sensitive as we could be to other cultures. And let's be honest, sometimes we do have to act to protect our interest in ways that might not necessarily be the best interests of other countries. But still, we don't deserve this. Nobody deserves this. So why do these extremists act like this? Why are they so filled with hate, I asked. Well, first of all, it might not even be who we think it is, he said. Look at the Oklahoma City bombing. That was a homegrown American citizen. And second, it didn't say it was by an extremist. And second, I didn't say it was by a Muslim. I said a Muslim extremist. He stopped talking to catch his breath. I knew how hard it was to walk, carry ting, and talk. Most Muslims, heck, most Christians, Jews, Hindus, and Buddhists are peaceful people. But I keep hearing on the news about Muslims in the Middle East blowing themselves up and killing innocent people, I said. Those are extremists, people who don't really understand what their own religion is about. Can you imagine any person, any normal, any religious person saying that they want to kill innocent people? No, not really, but I stopped. I heard more voices coming up the stairs towards us. I think it's more emergency personnel, my dad said. I can hear their radios. I could hear those static-filled voices too. I was hoping it was firefighters and not paramedics. We'd worked too hard and had taken Ting too far to stop now, unless she needed us to stop. Did she need to have a paramedic examine her right now? I looked up at her. Her eyes were open and she smiled at me. That was reassuring. But if these were paramedics, we'd stop and they'd see her. The voices, the radios, they were all getting louder and louder. I turned the corner. It was firefighters, but they weren't climbing. They were sitting at the bottom of the next landing. What were they doing? One of them was practically lying down and his shirt was off and the other was giving him oxygen. I slowed down and we came to a stop a few steps above him. The man's face was as white as snow. There were beads of sweat pouring down his forehead and his eyes were closed. Was he? No, I could see his chest rising up and down. One of the firefighters looked up. Just slip on by, he ordered. I wanted to ask if he was okay, to say something, but there was nothing that I could say. Slowly, cautiously, I stepped onto the landing, trying not to look at him, but being careful not to step on anything or anybody. One of the firemen was practically yelling into his radio, trying to let them know what was happening, trying to get the paramedic up to assist. I started down to the next landing. I turned back around to make sure my father was able to get by safely. He slipped by, and he nodded to me reassuringly, to let me know that he was fine, to let me know that everything was fine, even though I knew it wasn't. Okay, see you next time.